Good evening and welcome to the Writer's Block. I'm your host, John Ronan, and as you know now, because our program is in its 26th year, I interview poets and other kinds of writers about their craft, what they're working on today, what they've accomplished in the past, what they might be planning for the future. We have on other kinds of artists as well. Sometimes we've had on painters and sculptors, actors. It's a pretty broad net we cast. So if you have an idea for a guest who might be right for the Writer's Block, either a poet or a journalist, a novelist, or another brand of artistic person, watch for our address at the end of the show. We'd be very happy to get your suggestions. I also want to remind you that the Writer's Block, along with all the other original programming that comes out of Cape Ann TV here in services Gloucester, Rockport, Manchester, and Essex, is a result of cable access television. It's a wonderful community service and one that you don't get with Dish. So remember, if you're looking at commercials for Dish access to television, don't pay any attention. Stick with cable. Tonight, I'm very happy to say we do have a poet who's returning for a second guest visit here on the Writer's Block. Her name is Emma Romeu. I hope I pronounced that more or less correctly. She is a very well-known writer, environmental journalist, and poet. She's a native of Cuba, but emigrated to Mexico in the 90s and since emigrated to the United States, and she lives here in the Boston area. She is widely published both in Spanish, Mexican, and American press and magazines. Many of her articles have appeared in international magazines, National Geographic among them. She was a guest recently on the Writer's Block for an earlier book of poems, Renovación de la Luna. Did I get close on that pronunciation?
Great.
And she will be talking this evening about a new book, Now That Life's Given Me a Minute. And I'm not going to try to pronounce the Spanish. Ahora que me deja un minuto la vida. Emma Romeu, thanks very much for being on the Writer's Block.
Buenas noches. I am happy to be here again.
Buenas noches. I'm sorry I slaughtered the title of your book.
No,
would you read for us?
Ahora que me deja un minuto la vida.
Now that life's given me a minute. Tell me about the inception of this book of poetry and when it began, as opposed and distinct from your last book, which came out about 1.5 years ago, I think,
yes,
or so?
About 2 years. Yeah.
When did you start thinking about now that life's given me a minute?
Well, after my first book of poetry, Renovation of the Moon, I continue working on poetry. I had some poems. Just when I finished that one, I already had some poems at home. And I said, okay, I am feeling that I need to continue. I had more subjects to write about. And once I prepared a first manuscript, then I asked Michael Green again if he was willing to translate this book again also. And then we started the process. I sent him the poems, and he was working during the winter. And in the spring, we had already the material to send it for printing.
During this horrible winter of February and March of 2015.
Yes.
And you had to Skype
yeah.
to talk to him.
Yes.
Even though it was only about 5 miles.
Yes, I live in Arlington, as you know, and he lives in Medford. Then I sent him the poems by email, and we connected by Skype because the snow didn't allow us to go for a meeting.
Are you used to snow yet?
No, definitely no.
No.
No, a woman from the Caribbean is
You
difficult.
feel nostalgic for Mexico every time it snows?
I feel, yes, saudade for the warm weather, always.
I enjoyed this book very much, and I like to, as a part of the Writer's Block's effort, to make sure that we talk here about the vibrancy and the novelty of new Latino and Spanish literature coming into America and adding to our experience. One of the poems that jumped out at me right away, because you mentioned Mark Twain in it, and combined those literatures, is Mississippi. And I mentioned that to you before the show starts. And I wonder if you could talk to us about your poem Mississippi a little bit, where it came from, and then maybe read it for us.
Well, Mark Twain, is international. It belongs to all the children in the world. And when I was a child, I was familiar with his work.
How old were you when you read Mark Twain or Huckleberry Finn?
9, 10 years old.
In Cuba?
Yes. Then I read all the classics when I was a child, and they are with me as with the other authors. Every time I hear the interview of an author, I realize that they also have these authors inside, no? And it happened to me, and that's why I remember all them when I wrote this book.
So you listen to other authors and you realize they've had similar experience.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, with these authors.
I think I was a lot older than 10 when I read Mark Twain. First 10, 12, 13, 14 or something. But I'm just impressed that Mark Twain was one of your early influences.
But for all the Spanish authors, as for Americans or authors, these are definitely some of the authors you have to know since you are a child.
And of course, the Mississippi is central to many of his books. Life on the Mississippi, Huckleberry Finn, Tom Sawyer, and others.
Definitely because of that. The first time I could come to Mississippi, I felt a big emotion. I was very impressed in front of the river because I was dreaming of that moment forever. As a writer for children as I am, and also as a reader. This river was in me. That's
very interesting. I remember my reaction the first time I saw the Mississippi. I was just, because of this as well, because of Twain, because I grew up in the Midwest too. So the Mississippi is a presence there, even if you've never heard of Twain. The Mississippi, the big river, is. And if you're looking at a river and you're not sure if it's the Mississippi, it's not the Mississippi.
You were closer, definitely.
Yes. Can you read this poem for us in Spanish and then in English?
In English? I can try. Yes. I am not very good at reading poems in English, but if you want me to do that, I can do that. Yeah.
Sure.
Or do you prefer to read it? No.
Well,
I will do that. All right.
You're the guest. I want to give you the stage.
Mississippi. Desde aquel libro la palabra Mississippi madrugó con su gran M en mi candor y sin moderación me susurró sus S. Me quería advertir con sus meandros que largo y muy sinuoso podría ser mi camino. Cuando por fin, después de navegar las aguas tan revueltas de mi vida, conocí el Mississippi, lloré con mi emoción de niña de Mark Twain y supe que aún en mi alegría junto al famoso río me quedaban pendientes con Salgari, con Verne y con Stevenson. Con Melville ya he saldado algunas cuentas. Por eso me preparo para el siguiente viaje. Construyo el submarino.
Thank you. It sounds, your pronunciation of Spanish sounds very good. Would you read it in English? Now, I don't want to embarrass you. Do you not want to read it?
I can.
Okay. And if you could read it a little louder.
Okay. Mississippi. The word Mississippi arrived early ever since that book, pressing its huge M into my own innocent mind and unrestrainedly whispering its S. Its meandering aim to warn me that however long and sinuous my way might be, finally, after navigating the choppy waters of my life, I'd come to know the Mississippi. I sobbed with the emotion of a child of Mark Twain, and I found out that even if my joy beside the famous river things were still unsettled between me and Salgari, and Verne and Stevenson, Melville and I had already settled accounts, and I am getting ready for my next trip. I'm building a submarine.
I'm building a submarine. Construyo un submarino. I'm interested in what you mean by settled your accounts with Melville.
Because I am living here and because I wrote about whales a lot. I wrote an article for National Geographic. I wrote an article about the Mexican whales years ago, and I am feeling close to Melville now that I'm living here. So
I thought there was a little tone that you didn't quite approve of Melville. Is that?
Well, because I am an environmental journalist, but I understand definitely that part of the life when for the hunters, whale hunters, definitely life is like that, and it happened, and it is happening still. I don't approve it, but.
How old were you when you got through Moby Dick?
Wow. I was a child.
Or have you?
I was a child.
Did you get through it all?
Oh, I don't know.
Almost.
Maybe.
It's a big book.
Yes, it is, but it is a wonderful book. A wonderful book. Mm.
Are there other poems in Now That Life's Given Me a Minute that you would like to read for us?
Yes.
To express the core of what you were trying to get across in the book?
I am not sure I'm getting what you are saying.
Yeah, are there poems that you would like to read, that you would pick out,
that
right, sort of really represent the flavor of the book, the general push of the book? Yeah,
the book has 3 parts. The first one is about emigration, and I think it represents very well what I am feeling about what is happening to me. After so many years outside of my country, I'm feeling like this, and there are many people that are feeling the same. You know, when we left our country, many of us knew that we couldn't come back, and that was hard. And now we are allowed to do these trips to Cuba. We can come back. Then we have many feelings about that. So, and also living outside, living for so many years outside of our country, it has a consequence in our way of feeling.
So you would pick a poem on the immigration poem?
Yes. This is Las Olas de Enfrente.
What page is that?
13. For you
13?
For you 12. Mm. Las olas de enfrente. Es temprano en el Golfo, en la Florida, y estoy sentada en el banco de Gabriel que amaba mirar las olas. Lo sella la inscripción que alguien lloró en bronce en la madera. Me siento acompañada por Gabriel en sus ondas. ¿Quién la habrá amado tanto para hacer renacer cada vez su mirada en cada caminante que buscara refugio en este banco, en cada pensativa muchacha enamorada, en cada solitario de las dunas? No he tenido la suerte de Gabriel. No hay palabras escritas en mi sitio, en mi orilla estirpada. Allá donde morí desde hace tiempo, donde otros usaron mis vestidos, gastaron mis cerrojos, pretendido mi vida como si hubiera muerto. Y no como la incorpórea Gabriel, que es también esa nube y aquella caracola y es garza y pececillo, sino que allí seré la de la doble muerte, porque ya desde ahora nadie acompaña mis olas, como al alba acompaño yo en su banco, desde esta otra orilla, las olas de Gabriel.
Thank you. And we're back on water theme here. The title is Facing the Waves. And so that our audience can get a sense of this, I'm going to read Facing the Waves in English, which you just finished. I hope I can do it as musical justice as you did in your reading. Facing the Waves for Gabrielle. It's early on the Gulf in Florida, and I'm sitting on the bench dedicated to Gabrielle, who loved to contemplate the waves. Someone mourned her name in bronze, an inscription in the wood. I feel Gabrielle accompanying me in her waves. I wonder who loved her so, for reviving her gaze time and again in every stroller seeking refuge on this bench, in every pensive, love-struck girl, in every loner on the dunes. I haven't had Gabriel's luck. No words are written at my sight, on that torn-off shore where I died a long time ago, where others used my clothes, wore out my deadbolts, assumed my life as if I were dead. And unlike the incorporeal Gabriel, who is also that cloud and that snail and a heron and a little fish, I'll be the one with the double death, because no one is with my waves now, as I am with hers, here at dawn on this other shore, on Gabrielle's bench.
Thank you.
Did you know Gabrielle?
I was walking in Florida and I saw a bench dedicated to her. So I like that, people dedicating benches to people they loved. And I didn't see that before. This is something I saw here in the United States. And then I wrote that poem. That was in St. Pete Beach in Florida.
When I read this poem, I thought at first, well, she's just seen his name, and she doesn't know the person.
Exactly.
But then you seem to get to know the person so well. I thought she does know the person. She does know Gabriel. In the end, it doesn't make any difference whether you knew her personally or not. It's very, very nicely done. A nice poem. Water, I hadn't intended to ask this, but water appears in a great deal of your poetry. Is that because of a poetic inclination? Is that because you're partially an oceanographer?
Maybe. You know, the ocean for me is very important. And, but maybe just water, because there is a poem here dedicated to the Spy Pond in Arlington.
To whom?
Spy Pond. Spy Pond in Arlington.
Oh, Spy, yes, yes.
Yeah. This is a place I go frequently because I live in Arlington. And I wrote a poem for them. Do you want me to read that one?
Yes, I have that marked. That's one of the poems I marked because of the water and because also...
69.
I've seen that.
68.
Page...
68.
68, yes.
Yeah. Spy Pond. El lago del espía bien merece su nombre. no por lo que otros creen, conclusiones pueriles. Yo resguardo el secreto del joven que entre arbustos vigilaba sus márgenes. Delgado, escurridizo, de obstinada mirada que de tanto acechar la suspirada orilla, descubrió la secreta partida de las aves y supo del coyote que se dejó morir sobre la superficie helada de las aguas. Desde aquel escondite, cercado por el monte, y mientras esperaba atisbar su objetivo, vio el espía luciérnagas despertar a los árboles, danzar a las tortugas, fantasmas de glaciares, y en una de las noches luminosas de nieve, allende en la mansión se encendieron 1000 luces, y entonces vio a su amada de nupcias en 1000 tules que velaron la luna hasta volverla eclipse. Así, como al coyote dormido de los témpanos, lo recogieron muerto, cuando la primavera desheló las orillas, a aquel que en su escondite acechaba en ternura. Este lago de Arlington bien merece su nombre, y no como otros dicen por asuntos de guerra.
Would you like to read it in English?
I would love it. I would love it.
Please. For you to read.
No, for me no.
No, you don't want to read it? I'll read it.
Thank you.
Spy Pond, Arlington, Massachusetts. Spy Pond really deserves its name, and not for what others believe, puerile conclusions. I care for a gaunt, elusive youth's secret. He stood between the bushes, scrutinizing the shore with a persistent gaze, stalking his treasured spot so long he discovered the secret parting of the birds and learned about the coyote who let itself die on the pond's frozen surface. Waiting, staring at his target from his hiding place in the middle of the woods, the spy saw fireflies awaken in the trees, watched turtles dance, and beheld the ghosts of glaciers. On one of those luminous snowy nights, 1,000 lights were lit in the mansion on the other side, and his beloved appeared at her wedding in 1,000 tules that veiled the moon to the point of eclipse. And so, like the coyote sleeping on the ice, the young man who'd been devotedly spying from his hiding place was found dead when spring unfroze the shores. This Arlington Pond really deserves its name, and not, as most people say, because of some war. This reminded me of the poem for Gabriel, in that there's an imagined person who becomes real to you, almost a ghost presence. Do you believe in ghosts?
Not too much.
No. But certainly psychological reality that you can conjure up.
Mm-hmm.
That's very nice. I've seen this Spy Pond. That's one of the reasons that jumped out at me.
Yeah, there is another poem that is related to Spy Pond in a way, and it is also related with my emigration. This is a combination, I would say.
It's what?
A combination of both.
Okay. Which is that?
This is alas, wings. This is on page 36.
Wings. Okay. I want to, let's reverse this. I'm going to read it in English, and then you read it in Spanish. Wings. A leaf would rather say goodbye than wait for winter. The lake, the gander, and I watch it fall. We're quiet, wary. The snow will come with its enervating touch to remind us that nothing is permanent. And the gander hurries to depart with the greatest power there is, the power of wings. The lake, as always, will live on in memory, while I hunt for a different reason to stay here once again and await the cold. A reason that doesn't come from defeat and isn't the cloak shrouding that other city or that past that's become a postcard from being endlessly penned, another form of snow. Then I convinced myself that if I left, the gander would miss being welcomed by familiar eyes when it returned. Very nice.
Do you want me to read it in Spanish or?
Yes,
I can read some more in English. Do you want me to read it in Spanish or?
Yes, please.
Yes.
So that our audience can kind of hear its length and rhythms a little bit in both languages.
Alas. Una hoja prefiere despedirse que aguardar el invierno. El lago, el ganso y yo la miramos caer. Estamos silenciosos, precavidos. La nieve llegará con su punta enervante a recordar que nada es permanente, y el ganso se apresura a partir en su poder, el más grande que existe, el de las alas. El lago, como siempre, vivirá del recuerdo, mientras yo me busco otra razón para quedarme una vez más a la espera del frío, que no sean razones de vencida, que no sea ese manto que cubre otra ciudad o aquel pasado que se ha vuelto postal a fuerza de dejarlo en los renglones, otra forma de nieve. Entonces me convenzo de que si me marchara, carecería el ganso en su regreso de unos ojos que lo reconocieran. No quiero para el ganso soledad que conozco. Vuelvo a pilar la leña, me ajusto la pelliza y espero su llegada.
I blew my reading there and didn't turn the page.
You can finish it now.
Thank you.
Maybe
very much.
you can read the end.
The what?
The end in this.
The end that I didn't read. I wouldn't wish the solitude I know on him, so I turned to pile up the wood, adjust my fur jacket, and await its arrival. His arrival.
Good combination of both.
Yes, yes. See, in the Spanish, ends in a semicolon. So you know that the sentence is going to continue.
All right.
But in the English, it ends with a period. And
right.
I read it before, but I didn't remember that it continued.
Yeah.
I had to. I'm almost out of time. In fact, I'm going to have to thank you very much, Emma, for being with us again. I am out of time. I want to hold up the book again. This is last year's book, Renovación de la Luna. And I want to remind our viewers about that book. The book we've been discussing and that Emma has been reading from tonight is Now That Life's Given Me a Minute. I want to thank you for being with us, Emma, very much.
Thank you very much for inviting me again.
If you've learned something about Emma Romeu and her poetry and her writing about whales and her experience with the Mississippi and Mark Twain, then the Writer's Block has done its job. Thanks very much for being with us, and I hope to see you again next week on the Writer's Block. Good night.